Right, well, welcome to June in the Polytunnel. It's 1st of June today and the weather's turned. I thought I'd do a slightly different shot of the Polytunnel today. You can see a few of the plants actually in the Polytunnel rather than just me on a chair. So I don't know what you can see. Can you see that? You can see the lettuce. It's maybe not quite. It's not quite in shot, but there's a lot of tomatoes and rocket here, which is bolted because it was, even with the shade netting up, it was too hot in here, and the rocket is just bolted. So again, we can just sit in here for a little while and, you know, pretend it's sunny outside, not absolutely grim, and pretend we're now going into the full height of summer. Something I kind of wanted to go back to doing, which I used to do about 5 years ago, was the monthly energy report videos, where I just kind of talked about the feel of the month that we were just about starting in. So for those of you who are into astrology as well, you may know there's quite something coming up in especially July time astrologically, and it will be interesting to see how that all pans out, really, how that pans out. It's like, for me now here, right at the beginning of June, just finished May, it does feel like we're kind of in a precursory stage to whatever is really gonna almost change gear, I think, in July. Things have kind of started to change now. Things for me personally feel like they've started to speed up, even if I can't actually still see the trajectory ahead. And you know, we see that in the plants this time of year as well. Sort of around May time is when you go from like these little seedlings thinking, are they going to make it? And then they just get this like massive woof, burst of growth, and things really start to kick in. The growing season has started now, and yeah, in the space of like a week, you can see such a difference in the plants, and I feel like that's happening in life as well for us. And I think we forget as well, like when we're in the thick of like day-to-day life, how quickly things can actually change, especially when we kind of look back on things, how quickly a situation has gone from maybe what we didn't want to maybe what we did want really quickly. And then when we get back into another situation, like a life transition, for example, where you're in that space of not knowing and you're thinking, I need to get out of this space. It's so uncomfortable. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where I'm going next. It feels like it's always going to be like this. And we're not really there for that long in the grand scheme of things. It just feels like it at the time. And so for me, like, that's something that plants can really kind of remind us about, really. No one season lasts forever. Everything does change, and a lot of things have the potential to change really quickly. So like this bean, which I believe my 5-year-old planted not quite 2 weeks ago. He claims it was not 2 weeks ago. It's less than 2 weeks ago. But yeah, look at the size of it. It's just shot on. Like, I've potted it up, obviously, because it was in a tiny pot originally. It's getting bigger. It's now rooted as well, because I potted it into this about 4 days ago, I think. It's now rooted and it's ready to go out in the garden, possibly to get decimated by slugs, but we'll hope not. And that is how quickly things can change, really. And I feel like in June, it's going to be finding that balance of, yes, things are happening at a speedy pace, but do we get sucked up in that speedy pace and get carried away with this like massively strong flow of water? Or are we able to kind of step to the side of it when we need to, and slow down when we need to, and recenter, and make sure we're still just facing in that right direction, on that right trajectory? Because I think if we can balance them two skills of like being able to take ourselves out of the situation and be objective and just stop and look at where we're at, and combining that with when, okay, I feel like I'm in the right direction, I'm ready to step back into the river now, then we can make pretty quick progress. But as usual, we always encounter our own blocks, don't we? We often get in our own ways. Self-sabotage, maybe. I don't think that's necessarily the right word, but a lot of the beliefs I think that we've had over the years, many of us from, childhood, right far back, or even ancestral ones are coming up a lot at the moment, beliefs that have really been almost passed down to us in our DNA, beliefs that have run in the family line for however many generations. They're really coming up now to be questioned, to be looked at, to be laid out and looked at, whether we like it or not, whether we want to get them out and dissect them, or whether we'd rather just shut them back in the cupboard and pretend they weren't there. So I think wherever you're at right now, it's a good time to really lean into those practices that help you to kind of root down and root in and feel grounded enough to really make objective decisions from. Because it can get so hard when you get caught up in the emotions of it all and just kind of get carried away on that tidal wave of such strong emotions when we're moving through stuff. And it's really a skill to practice, and we all need to practice it, where we can just kind of take ourselves out of that emotional wave and just say, okay, where am I operating from here? Is this coming from a belief that I've had for years that maybe let's examine the belief? Equally, I think there are a lot of moving parts to this, and yes, the self-examination is useful, but at the same time, we can't expect ourselves to have all the answers and know the answers to everything and know exactly why, I'm thinking this is happening because of this childhood wound that I had, or this belief that I have, and I believe this because of X, Y, Z. We don't need the full. We get caught up, don't we, in I know my analytical mind does, of the whole analysing why I think like I think, and the psychology is useful, but it's not the whole story. It's so important to remember as well to really drop in to the wisdom of the body, which doesn't operate on that level. It just operates on a much deeper knowing that sometimes can be also difficult for us to access with the thinking mind. So dropping into those rituals or practices, I think, especially now over the next few months, where you really get that sense of connecting with your own body and your own wisdom within the body, not within the noggin. So, things like yoga and breath work all have their place and are all useful. For me, it's more sitting with the plants, connecting with the plants, drinking the plants, just gardening really, and getting all those jars of dried herbs out and making tea. I'm currently making up some batches of my Sovereign Heart blend tea for Wild Rose Path, which I love so much, that tea. So there'll be a couple of those for sale soon. But definitely just sitting drinking tea would be nice right now. And yeah, if you feel called to kind of sit with plants yourself, and that doesn't have to be, in full meditation, it can just be going down the cup of tea route. I have made a free little PDF booklet and accompanying audio as well. And that is called the Stile, and it talks in it about 3 plant allies, if you will, that are really supportive, and particularly if you're in the in-between of a life transition at the moment. So if you're in that liminal space, if something has ended for you and the new has maybe not quite started yet, and you're feeling it in that in-between stage where it's you just feel so lost and stuck and just, I don't know what direction I'm going in, that can be a really useful time to get support in all forms. And one of those forms is definitely fantastic support in the form of plants. So in the ebook, we're just talking about 3 plants that can support you where you're at right now, and kind of how to use them as well. So I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And why is it called the Stile? It's because it's the style for me is like a threshold between places. The styles around here are sort of between the fields and then up onto the fells. And there's a particular couple of styles around here that I use regularly on my walks to transition from kind of what you call everyday life, you know, the fields. It's a bit more closer to everyday life, off up into the wilderness of the fell, where life is very different, the atmosphere is very different, the energy is very different. So the style is like that transition point. Anyway, have a wonderful June, and I will try and do another of these videos next month. If I do it in the same spot, you can see how much the tomatoes will have grown, can't you? And then they'll probably, it will give me some impetus to like keep on top of them, and you know, because they're doing side shoots now, so I really need to. It's got to that point now where everything's suddenly grown. I need to get on with looking after them now. So have a great month, and I will see you soon.